Moorhead, Fargo, RadioFreeFargo.org. You can stream that anywhere in the world, and by anywhere, I mean literally anywhere. So noon to 3, got Side Stage with Trav. And again, he had a humdinger of one in here today. All I got's words for you. Of course, the words have to do with cannabis legalization. And so you don't always get to hear that kind of talking on a radio show. So there is some uniqueness to that. You got Stinky Arts Music Mart directly after me. Locals on the 8. And then Radio Free Madness knocks out your Thursday here on Radio Free Fargo 95.9. Again, beautiful day in Fargo if you're a crocodile. But this weather's way too high. It's 420 degrees here in the studio. I'm dressed appropriately. I hope everybody else is too. You're wondering if you just tuned in, what in the world's happening now? At 4:20, I open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and I got a lot to talk about. We might even squeeze some in before that. But until then, it's kind of like what I say, red tape. I'm going to throw in some, some boogieing in here too. So stick with me. Load up your bong if you got a medical card, because we're here to change the law, not break the law. 4:20, we'll talk about this week in cannabis. And so if nobody's done it before and you haven't done it, please put your right hand up in the air and say you solemnly swear to never call cannabis anything but cannabis. No weed, no marijuana, no dope. So help you God. Okay, welcome to the club. And again, thank you for joining me. Last Thursday, I wasn't in. And I don't know how else to say it, but I was having a mental day. And I'm not so sure it's over, but I can't just stay in the apartment scratching myself. Because either I have mites, I have mold, or I'll probably have to check into Prairie Psychiatric. And it happened 5 years ago, and I didn't need psychiatric care. So pray for me, and we'll get this thing knocked out. But again, it's good to be here. I'm going to talk about cannabis in a positive light. It's what I do every Thursday here on KRFF 95.9 Moorhead, Fargo. This show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. Black Cottage Alchemy specifically has a body butter with alpine hemp and a bunch of other good stuff in it. I don't have the little jar to read the label off to you, but everybody I know that's done it, I use it. My family uses it, and it works for anything like skin, burns, rashes, all that stuff that you would go and buy, some pharmaceutical type stuff. You don't need to do that with Becky's Body Butter. BlackCottageAlchemy.com, Black Cottage Alchemy on Facebook, or you can go downtown here and check out the old Tochi products. The body butter as well as other products is in Tochi products to buy. And they're sponsoring this show, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. So thank you, Black Cottage Alchemy, for, believing in this vehicle that is cannabis legalization and cannabis in a positive light. Again, BlackCottageAlchemy.com, Black Cottage Alchemy on Facebook. The New Life Center helps people who are homeless and hurt and go from merely surviving to truly thriving. Their aim is to help people in need discover value and find hope. The New Life Center has evolved into a multifaceted emergency and crisis service center. To learn more about NLC, visit their website at www.fargonlc.org or give them a call at 701-235-4453. And again, I believe God created cannabis. I believe he needs to be told that. And if you feel like I feel and you want to check out a church, because most churches are jokes, check out Antioch Church, South Fargo. And if you're going to be in Dickinson, I'm going to be in Dickinson on Sunday. Check out New Life Pentecostal Church. And I'll be there. So anyway, like I said, as a newfound Christian, I can't not talk about it. I'll limit it because this is a show about cannabis. But deep down, I have a conscience. So let's move on. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson's on Facebook. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson will happen again, minus the music. I believe we're settling on Saturday at noon. So if you don't like songs, which I don't know what's wrong with you, you can just wait and check that out. And I appreciate it. Well, let's just, speaking of songs, here's Franklin featuring Stanton Moore, Robert Walter. Coming out the gate hot, Franklin featuring Stanton Moore. That's brand new Robert Walter. And if you know anything about Stanton Moore, Corrosion of Conformity, Galactic, and the only drummer I know that's made his own drum. He made his own drums. You know, he's like, I ain't going to the store. Let's go in the garage and make my own drums. So shout out Stanton Moore here on Radio Free Fargo, KRFF 95.9 LPFM. You're currently strapped into Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. I'm Wilson. The topic is cannabis legalization in a positive light. And this Thursday's no different. Again, thank you for joining me. Before me was Side Stage with Trav, noon to 3. After me, Stinky Arts Music Mart, and then Locals on the 8, and then Bing Bang Boom, Radio Free Madness. And at 4:20, I'm going to open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and it's going to be great, and you're going to love it. Again, we're going to talk about cannabis in a positive light. I took off last Thursday, and I almost feel a little rusty. Because, you know, if you snooze, you lose, they say. And so let's talk about Indy for Freedom of Cannabis. Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act is currently, if you're in North Dakota, is currently a petition being circulated to get cannabis legalized. Well, actually, it's going to amend the Constitution. And as we've seen with people and politicians, it doesn't look like there's any other way but to do that. And constitutionalists don't love it, and we kind of fight with, you know, the purist of the Constitution. And I'm not here to do that. It's just the slack that I get when politicians are looking for an out, and they'll do anything to kind of get the amendment of the Constitution. However, anytime we've given it to them and the legislative power was in their hands, they scratched their butt. And then said, cannabis bad, booze good. So anyway, North Dakota, I mean, we voted the people in, but it doesn't seem like they're doing what we want. So Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act, 21 plus to possess, 12 plants to grow and consume, licensed business, great measure, Orange Records, Tochi Products, IndyCannabisCaucus.com for anywhere you are in the state of North Dakota. And if there isn't a petition to where you could sign or tell your Aunt Julie to sign, then you be that guy. And get on IndyCannabisCaucus.com, and they'll send you a packet. And February, I believe, is when they need about 26,000 signatures. So if you're a sideline guy going, I wish I could do something, maybe you should. And they appreciate any help they can get because, again, it's a movement. It's just the fact that I'm talking about it on the air is something that wasn't really allowed, much less encouraged. But it is on a station that rocks, RadioFreeFargo.org. Stream it wherever you want. Listen to it all the time. You know, get a microchip, get a QR code sewn into your arm that you can constantly be at 95.9. And you can buy and sell with it, too. Anyway, so I'll be in Dickinson on Saturday. I'm going to take a bus back. I'm going to go visit the kid. And again, we're going to go do a little Medora hiking. My daughter's got a new dog that's sick looking. It's called a Catahoula leopard dog. And in fact, for you guys that were wondering, Catahoula is named after a parish in Louisiana. And in fact, in 1979, the Catahoula became the state dog. Okay? Go ahead and write that down. And then if somebody said, did I learn something on Canna-Talk ND with Wilson? Yes, you did. Catahoula leopard dog is named after a parish, and it's the state dog of Louisiana, in case you were wondering. And it's got really cool markings, so I'm going to be there. And there you go. Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act, again, is at Tochi Products or Orange Records. I'm going to blow out a little pre-Canna-Talk ND with Wilson smoke because I got a lot of news to talk about, and maybe I don't. I get to talking, and it's almost like I'm greasy. What do we got here? 7 minutes. Okay, Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act, Orange Records, Tochi. Marijuana cannabis moment. Congressman says cannabis is only a performance-enhancing drug for hot dog eating contests. And we'll get into that more. But let's blow out a little music. I got to shout out my man, Biz. Let's just make the music with your mouth. Rest in peace. Music with your mouth, Biz. Biz Markie. Rest in peace. Again, first it was MF Doom and then Biz Markie. So, I mean, the hip-hop community took a hit as far as I'm concerned. Two of the greats. And so, shout out Biz Markie We'll see you when we see you. Devil's Lettuce, the Cadillac 3, Tabasco and Sweet Tea. I just can't help but play that song. I do a show about cannabis, and, why not? Well, I'm good at timing, so it means this. When you hear this, it's 4:20. You can set a clock to it.
Yo, it's Wilson from Canna-Talk ND. The super awesome show you're getting ready to listen to. I think you should go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll wait. Okay, enjoy the show.
5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Hey, how's it going? Hey, the guy with no shirt's back. Looking good, looking good. You got a little extra hair on the nipples, though. You can shave that stuff off. How you doing, ma'am? You brought your sister? Good. We're going to talk about cannabis. We're going to talk about cannabis in a positive light. And you guys can just sit there and, mow the lawn maybe and listen on RadioFreeFargo.org. Or you can have one of those actual radios with knobs and what have you and tune it to 95.9. And we're going to get this thing jumping by an article about, there's the word hot dog in it. Cannabis moment. Congressman says cannabis is only a performance-enhancing drug for hot dog eating contests. We got a lot to get to, so I'll probably jump through some of this. A congressman on Wednesday blasted the suspension of U.S. runner Longnail Shikari from the Olympics over a positive cannabis test and said cannabis is only a performance-enhancing drug in the context of food eating competitions. Representative Steve Cohen argued that it is hypocritical that athletes would be penalized for using cannabis when alcohol use is largely tolerated. And you and I both know that it's a big fat joke that's ran by money. And I say this every stinking show. Why did cannabis become illegal? It was based on race and money. And I'm here every Thursday. The number here in the studio is 701-478-4959. If you've got some proof that it did anything violent, that it caused any problems, let me read something. But until then, I believe it's a big fat joke, and it was based on racism and stinking greed. And until then, I'm going with the creator. It's a creator-based plant. Grown for our benefit, kind of like the manna in the Old Testament. The comments came at a House Judiciary Committee markup of a bill to eliminate the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. The legislation, which passed in a 36-5 vote, doesn't deal specifically with cannabis, but Cohen took the opportunity to reflect on the consequences of cannabis prohibition and make a call for change. He said marijuana is not a performance-enhancing drug unless you're entered in the Coney Island hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July. And to take Richardson's right to appear and her dream away from her is absurd. And because the reason is it's on Schedule 1. It's Schedule 1. So because it's Schedule 1, they don't even want to hear facts. They're like, don't hit me with with the facts. You don't make money off the facts in our world these days. So anyway, a cannabis moment here. This guy, GOP congressman, bulldozes cannabis grow sites along with police. A GOP congressman released videos on Wednesday showing him teaming up with local police to bulldoze illegal cannabis grow sites, flexing his muscles, deploying cheesy quotes, and grinning throughout the volunteer task. The Siskiyou County Sheriff had asked for help eradicating the unregulated cannabis greenhouses back in May. Representative Doug LaMalfa was among those to quickly raise their hand. He says, I love the smell of diesel power in the afternoon. It smells like victory. So if you see this guy in the street, slap him upside the head for being an idiot. Let's keep cruising. Cannabis moment. Surgeon General says stop locking up people for cannabis. And so that's what I'm saying. You got some schmuck politician who's all hopped up on, testosterone and, dare I say, male aggression, because that's what the hip kids are saying these days. But you got the Surgeon General, who's a doctor. He's a surgeon. He says stop locking people up for cannabis. And you're out there bulldozing people's medicine barns down. Get a hold of yourself, mafalfa. The nation's top doctor said on Sunday that it's time to incarcerating people for cannabis use. When it comes to decriminalization, I don't think there is value to individuals or to society to lock people up for cannabis use. Again, I got busted in South Dakota for a vape pen with flour, not concentrates, because I'm a purist. I went to jail. I stayed there till Monday. Ate horrible food. And not once did they tell me, look at your life. You could do better. Your family needs you present. No. They said $500 and you don't have to come back to South Dakota. See what I'm saying? So this isn't about your safety. It's about an income that's been created, a revenue stream for our country based around consequential acts when somebody uses cannabis. And the Surgeon General says, I don't think that serves anybody well, and he's right. Murphy was answering a question about the new draft federal cannabis legalization bill that was circulated last week. While the Surgeon General stopped short of endorsing full-scale commercial cannabis legalization, his comments do indicate support for an approach that would at least decrim low-level possession. President Joe Sleepy, who opposes broad legalization, campaigned on a platform of incremental decrim and expunging past records, but has taken no steps to follow through on those promises since taking office. And in my case, your classic, let me get the vote and then let me do that double-speak stuff that we love to hear. All right, now I'm going to read this from Cannabis Now. It's called How Native Tribal Cannabis Can Beat States to Legalization. So shout out to South Dakota. I'm going to read this article. Again, I think it's fantastic. I did a show about the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe that had passed it, but they were afraid of the, I feel weird saying this, but they were afraid of the white man. They were afraid of the authorities coming in there and disrupting their thing. So even though they got permission, they were worried that they would get, crushed on. But now, Crushy, the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe. And they're the only place that has a dispensary in good old South Dakota. Let's give South Dakota's Flandre Santee Sioux tribe a hand. So anyway, let me just get us started here with this. Well, I've technically already started, but you know what I mean. So this was on Facebook, and these people, I guess the names are irrelevant, but it was a comment thread, and it said, Flandreau is selling Ace for $40. This guy goes, well, anybody can get a medical card. All you have to do is go to NugMD and get approved. And then you can get one up there. I know many people who already have. And I didn't realize Flandreau is pretty close to Fargo if you're on 29er. But anyway, apparently they're giving cards to anyone. You can go on NugMD and pay $39 to get the recommendation. You take that to the tribe and they'll give you a card and you get to go to the dispensary the same day. Now, if that doesn't sound sick, that sounds sick. So you go to that website, you put in your recommendation. Apparently you don't even need a doc. I don't know. Seems pretty easy, which is so ironic in South Dakota because nothing is easy. Again, they see dollar signs when they pull you over. They make up the smell. They make up the traffic violations because South Dakota cops are too busy to get a tree, cat down from the tree, but they can smell cannabis in a Volkswagen 60 miles away because it equates revenue. So I'm for any time, the underdog gets the leg up. So this article is South Dakota is a small place, and the town of Flandreau is even smaller. About 2,400 people located 40 minutes drive away from Sioux Falls, and that's 40 minutes north, so that's towards us, not away. The largest city and de facto cultural capital. Flandreau is the largest settlement on the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe, 2,300 acres. Flandreau was possibly the most famous place in the state on July 1st, the day of the grand opening of the Native Nations Cannabis Dispensary. Native Nations Cannabis Dispensary. Through the grand opening over the July 4th weekend, the tribe registered about 1,000 patients. According to Seth Pierman, the tribe's attorney general, all of whom are then free to shop at the dispensary. More importantly, there was no repeat of 2015 when threats from law enforcement thwarted the tribe's first crack at the cannabis business, and they tried again in 2019. Elsewhere on the reservation, about 10,000 well-tended cannabis plants oozing terpenes in tribal grow houses, waiting for when harvest can net the tribe as much as $1 million. Can I get an amen from Doug? Or maybe more, if the tribe also becomes the first adult-use cannabis dispensary within driving distance of Sioux Falls, as well as much larger cities like Minneapolis and about 3.5 hours away. Because apparently, you can get a card, hang out, and go back to Fargo, as an example. With Native Nations cannabis, the Flandreau Santee Sioux were not the first tribe to enter the cannabis industry. Native tribal cannabis businesses are in operation in Cali, Nevada, East Coast, South, as well as the West. Tribes in places like Long Island, New York, are also pursuing commercial cannabis. And before I forget, the New York TSA airports are not pressing you for cannabis products in your bags. So if you're thinking about going to the Big Apple, head on to Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe, get you a little something, and get to New York. New York. What you talking about? I'm not great at that. Impressions. But anyway, a reversal of federal model that thwarts other cannabis companies from becoming nationwide powerhouses. The Flandreau Santee Sioux are demonstrating how tribes can use U.S. federal law to create unprecedented economic opportunity for indigenous Americans. So skip the headaches that are thwarting other legacy operators in states shut out from legal cannabis. If all goes well, the Flandreau Santee will provide a model for native tribal. So First Nations first, finally. South Dakota became the first state in the U.S. to legalize medical and adult use cannabis at the same time. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention is that apparently today would have been the day that the judges in South Dakota would have came out and said yes or no on the single subject rule. So I'm pleased to announce that there's 4 ballot initiatives that are locked and loaded, because what they think could happen is they tell people, well, they haven't decided yet, and then they go past the certain deadline that if you haven't submitted ballot initiatives, there's a deadline to do so. And so if you wanted to put all your eggs in the basket and said, well, I'm sure Amendment A is going to be slid, all right, and they go, nope, it violated the single subject rule, then you have no rod in the fire. And so, again, I'm always pleased, and it's awesome how much they grind in South Dakota. And they've got 4 ballot initiatives locked and loaded, so they're not going to get us down. We're going to keep pushing because cannabis is beneficial, and it's natural. All you need is sun and water and a seed. You don't need anything else. Shortly thereafter, South Dakota also became the first state to have its elected and law enforcement officials stage a revolt to overturn the voters. And that's crazy. The tribe donated $100,000 in favor of legalization campaign contribution records show. So anyway, the Flandreau Sioux Tribal Council voted 5-1 to legalize cannabis on the reservation. They converted a 10,000 square foot building near the tribal casino into what was believed to be the first cannabis resort in Indian country in the United States. Remember that? And people were planning the New Year's party there. And then they got scared. So now let's talk about this. Now, I heard something about what's his name in North Dakota. I forget his name. I don't really want to say his name, but he's like the senator. Oh, he rhymes with Heaven Lamer. And apparently he did not help us with that more vote. And again, government involvement, we can see now, the propaganda, the spin. I don't believe them. I believe there's ulterior motives. So now you're telling me I should trust their ability to do what's right for me. I just hear a lot of talking, And South Dakota senators are no different. This is from South Dakota Public Broadcasting. SD senators oppose federal cannabis decrim push. So I want to make sure you hear these guys' names so you can, if you're in South Dakota, you can vote these guys out. Senators Mike Rounds and John Thune. South Dakota's 2 U.S. senators opposed the push by Senator majority to decrim cannabis. That's despite the Senate leader pointing to the state as a reason the chamber could make the policy change. It didn't take long in Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's press conference to point to South Dakota as a litmus test. However, they don't know the truth because even though 55% of the state voted in favor of Amendment A, well, you know what's going on with that. And so the Democrat from New York has drafted legislation to decrim at a federal level, which I don't like talking about it a lot because it seems like a lot of political soup poop. And I don't know that I even want federal regulation for cannabis because first of all, there's not enough of them doing it. There's not enough of them utilizing it for health benefits. So it's like listening to a nurse who's never been a nurse try to tell me what's good for my body because she says she's a nurse, but she's got no education, she's got no experience, and she's shaky with the scalpel. And that's what it kind of feels like with these legislators. And so anyway, it's funny because Chuck Schumer uses South Dakota as a linchpin for the MORE Act. But yet, here's what those two guys think. State's two Republican senators are not keen on the idea. Well, that's not surprising. Mike Round says he thinks decrim cannabis is wrong. The concept itself is something I'm not in favor of. Round says, I certainly will not be supporting a plan to decrim cannabis. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it sends the wrong message to our youth. We have enough problems with gateway drugs the way it is right now. I mean, are we in 1962, Rounds? I mean, how come he doesn't do any research? How come he doesn't look around? Every year that there's states that have legal cannabis, there's more and more proof that it's just a good old plant given to us by God himself to use for our life and longevity. Round's colleague in the Senate, John Thune, he doesn't like it either. Amendment A was supposed to go into effect on July 1st, but it has been held up in state courts on constitutional grounds, which that's what I'm saying to you. They're waiting. Amendment A is hemmed up. The people voted. So that's what I say about ND for Freedom Cannabis Act people and getting it, through. Oh, and on a federal level, they are trying to get a bill passed where you won't be able to do ballot initiatives anywhere. So just keep that in mind. Let's read. This is from Matt Cortina. Why New Jersey towns are opting out of illegal cannabis and why it might perpetuate the illicit market. And sometimes I think this is about this scam too. Because if you have a county that says, I don't want it here, next to a county where you can have it, you're going to go to where you can have it and bring it over to where you can't. That's just the way it works. That's just Murphy's Law. However, once you get into that state or county that you're not supposed to have it, cops can see you coming, bust you, and make money for the fireman's ball in December. So the question becomes, do you want this market to be transparent or do you want it to be underground? Do you want it to be run by criminals or do you want it to be ran by licensed businesses? While a handful of New Jersey cities and towns are diving headfirst into legal cannabis, Trenton, Jersey City, Lambertville, to name a few, many are opting out of allowing production in their communities. Municipalities have until August 21st to decide if they'll opt into one. Several or all of the 6 cannabis production and sale designations outlined and the legalization measure was approved by voters last year. And again, that's what I'm saying. It appears like nobody believes the people when they vote in a majority. And that's been happening all over. So it's like, and then the people we put in office to do our, to run with our wants and needs, all of a sudden this last 2 years, or well, when it comes to cannabis in North Dakota, always. But it does seem like we vote people in to then turn on us and tell us what they think we should be or do. After we as the majority voted in. So it's really patronizing. It seems like you talk down to people, and that seems to be the disconnect with legislators and the real people. Is, there doesn't seem to be the communication necessary to make me feel comfortable about trusting them with anything. And that's the problem. When you trust in the government for anything, it's shaky. It's shaky. You know what I'm saying? Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday, 4:20. I open a big fat bag of cannabis newsy news, and that's what's happening as we speak. Thanks for checking it out. KRFF 95.9 LPFM, RadioFreeFargo.org. You can stream. And that's just me telling you that. In case you were wondering what this guy rambling about cannabis is, we talk about cannabis as a positive light. I'm talking about New Jersey because August 21st, if you're a county, and again, I don't know why in the world, so let's see what they say. These opt-outs come despite the 2-1 margin of victory. That's what I'm saying. However, that there's more nuance to the decisions local leaders are making now. So I think there's an understanding that the ballot measure that passed was on legalization and decrim, and it wasn't whether or not your community is right for a dispensary. Again, that sounds like doublespeak for you don't care what the people in your community want. It's what you think. It's a different question. You can, for very good reason, support legalization, but say it's not a good fit for this community, and here's why. Yeah, do tell. In addition to the hesitance regarding how the state will regulate cannabis businesses, Sarah says there's valid anecdotal evidence about traffic and parking impacts. Here we go. Some aren't opposed to cannabis business in town. Oh, I'm fine. I just want to wait and see how other cities and towns do it. Let them work out infrastructural kinks first. So that's what are you, a follower? We need some leaders, all right? And you need to be connected with the people. And I guarantee you, those counties that you take this goofy mamby-pamby stance, are going to be going to those other counties and getting cannabis and coming back into your county. So what does that tell you, dude? Get your life together. But if you ask Edmund DeVoe, president of New Jersey Cannabis Association, the state's first cannabis trade organization, the lingering stigma of cannabis may underlie decisions to opt out of cannabis. There are communities and residents and stakeholders who say we're talking about a drug. And while on one hand, yeah, you're talking about a substance, but it's a plant, though. You know, I do have to still continue to remind people that almost 90 years we criminalized a plant, not for public or health reasons. Let me start over again. I do have to still continue to remind people that and I do too, that almost 90 years ago, we criminalized a plant not for public health reasons, not for public safety reasons, but because it was a plant used by Negroes, jazz musicians, and Mexicans. Let that sit in your woke, broke head. And if white women got a hold of this plant, they would lust after black men. That's why the plant was criminalized. Not for the public safety or for public health, DeVoe says. And he's spot on. For some lawmakers, perpetuating the stigma around cannabis has become part of their platform, for they may not have yet be ready to either give up on the prohibition fight or know enough about what the legal cannabis market actually looks like to get on board, which I would believe that's the case. You know, self-absorbed, close-minded, head in the sand. I mean, Google a little something. I mean, you don't know Illinois, for the third month in a row, has kicked down for more cannabis than liquor? Come on. And the more months that happens, you're going to see all kinds of other things go down. Domestic abuse going down. Kids with a father who almost all of a sudden wants to push him on a swing now and barbecue chicken with his family. So you're talking about something that's going overnight from illicit to licit. But the illicit is what I argue, And politicians can't necessarily change their attitudes by flipping a switch. Yeah, they can. It's called being real. They're going to initially look at regulating cannabis like it's plutonium, not like it's alcohol, which is a horrible thing to ingest. And it takes time for them to come to terms with this reality. But they got to stop taking their time, especially in South Dakota. Come on. For most of their political reality, this hasn't been an illegal substance, or it hasn't only been an illegal substance, it's been a demonized substance. Some of them have championed it being illegal and demonized it in their own political careers. See, that's what I'm saying. Revenue, political careers, somebody doesn't want to lose his career, he doesn't want to lose his revenue. So he deflects and he projects the demonization of cannabis because he makes money on alcohol or prison for profit. And that's just the way it is. So as our Mentano points out, research has been done for the last 25 years on medical, then rec, cannabis businesses on communities, and a cottage industry has cropped up to continue to study the effects. For instance, a regional science economics study in Denver found a 19% reduction in crime. The contemporary economic policy found a 7.7 increase in home value for properties within a half mile of a dispensary. Study in Oregon and Colorado found dispensaries are probably less likely to sell to minors than establishments selling alcohol. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So is that information getting through to municipal leaders in New Jersey? Doesn't matter. It seems at least that skeptical municipalities and the cannabis advocacy groups are trying to bridge the information gap. And again, I educate myself. I tell you to educate yourself and educate others. Join a cannabis group online. Search why it became illegal. And that horrible thing about Negro men and Mexicans and jazz, that is why cannabis became illegal. It is. And that's horrible. So if you think you're about human rights and you believe everybody should have an even and equal playing field, but you're against cannabis legalization, you're the problem, and you need to get your act together. So, and events like that, as well as time for municipalities to see it work in other New Jersey towns and cities, could usher in a sea change of opinion on legal cannabis. But that's the argument that they always say. I want to wait somebody else does it. I don't want to do it. I'll let you do it. And if you don't get burned, if you don't get your legs cut off, And so that's just not what we need in leaders, especially when the people are voting as a majority for these things to happen. So they're certainly shooting themselves in the foot. The idea is to replace the illicit market with an above-ground legal market by continuing to outlaw above ground. These communities are simply keeping the illicit marketplace market in place, and I would argue that it's almost on purpose, because then on the counties that opt out, they can catch you coming in from the counties that it's legal. So let's just keep cruising, man. I got fired up. This is from Cannabis Moment here. Nearly 88,000 New Jersey cannabis cases vacated or dismissed this month following decrim implementation. The New Jersey Judish on Monday announced that it has vacated 88,000 since July 1st, when a decrim law took effect that mandated the relief for people who have been caught up in prohibition enforcement. In a press release, the court said these are just the first of about 360,000 cannabis cases that are eligible to be automatically vacated, dismissed, and expunged. Let me just say that again. There's a neat word in here. Automatically vacated, dismissed, and expunged. I would say nothing like Governor Doug Buzzkill, who made you jump through a bunch of hoops, and even then it wasn't sure that you could get any sort of expunsion. The action comes after Supreme Court Chief Justice Stuart Rabner issued an order at the beginning of the month that also makes it so certain pending cannabis cases must be dismissed, must be, and failure to appear warrants must be rescinded. Isn't that awesome? So see, out of all this, some things are good. Some things are good. Now I'm going to talk to you about Montana. 6 months before adult use cannabis market opens, supply worries loom. Before I forget, though, you're going to want to do some research. But it looks like you can go to that website, get a cannabis card, and go to Flandreau Santee Sioux Dispensary in the state of South Dakota and get your medication on. Doesn't sound as hip as any other word I could think of, but I couldn't think of them. A few times a day, someone from out of town will walk into one of the Paulson Palmer's 3 dispensaries in northwest Montana asking if they can buy cannabis. The answer is almost always no. It should always be no, right? What do you mean it's almost always no? Where's that dispensary? What sometimes it's yes? While Palmer's Fruit Factory can sell cannabis to Montana residents with a cannabis card, it will not be legal to sell for non-medical adult use until January 1st, 2022, a message that might not be clear to out-of-state tourists who may have heard that cannabis has been legalized in Big Sky Country, but haven't closely followed the new law. And that's the other thing, following the news. If you're into political whatevers, or if you're into this, whatever's going on with the, rhymes with smack scene and all this stuff and what you think about it. If you're not closely following, can you say what's going on? And then as a human person living in this world, does the burden of proof to find out what's going on fall on you? And if you're just spoon-fed stuff, don't you wonder if maybe they're just spoon-feeding you something that isn't the whole truth? Just something to think about. Wilson's Melancholy Moment, brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. For adult use cannabis advocates, the fact that customers are already trying to buy is a sign that their forecast of legalized cannabis becoming a multi-million-dollar industry in the state was correct. Well, everybody knows that. Pent-up demand also brings up another concern. Will Montana's dispensaries be able to meet that demand come January? I think we're going to run out of cannabis in less than a week, said Pepper Peterson, my main man, Pepper P. That's what's happened everywhere else when the rec market opened up. We were barely keeping up with the demand for medical, and that's the problem. Within days of rec cannabis becoming legal in Illinois, some dispensaries in Chicago ran out of product, and shortages persisted for weeks and months. And again, if you allow a growing, if you can do a growing addendum, then you can get to growing right away. But again, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday, 4:20. We talk about cannabis in a positive light. This Thursday was no different. Next Thursday, I'll be up in here at 4 o'clock on Radio Free Fargo, KRFF 95.9, preceded by Side Stage with Trav. And then right after me is Stinky Arts Music Mart, Locals on the 8, Radio Free Madness. This hour of programming on KRFF 95.9 LPFM is being underwritten by the Fargo Air Show, which, if you don't live downtown with an apartment like I do facing the east, and you forget that the air show comes every year till you hear this high-pitched squealing like what rock and roll is, and you see a plane do a loop-de-loop right outside your apartment. It's awesome. I mean, these guys are just... I literally seen the word USAF as the jet went over First Avenue as I walked to the show as we speak, or as I spoke. So anyway, the U.S. Navy Blue Angels flight team headlined the Fargo Air Show at Hector International Airport July 24th and 25th. See a variety of thrilling aviation attractions, both military and civilian, in the air are on display. Check out the Fargo Air Show on Facebook, Instagram, or visit their website at fargoairshow.com. Celebrate the 75th anniversary season of the U.S. Navy Blue Angels flight team at the Fargo Air Show July 24th and 25th. But again, as a guy who lives downtown and they fly over, they're in tandem, they're screaming over First Avenue. Those practice sessions, if you've ever been lucky enough to be around that as they practice, I couldn't imagine actually going to the real show, because their practice gets my blood pumping. I screamed woo-hoo like I would at the encore of a Kiss song on a Kiss show as he flew right over my head. I literally could see the wheels, and my chest was just vibrating. Man, Fargo Air Show, go get your thrill on. And I don't know, I've got kind of a problem with this song, I Can't Stand the Rain. Apparently a lot of people do it. Here's Paul Rogers, I Can't Stand the Rain. Oh yeah, I Can't Stand the Rain, Paul Rogers. That's I Can't Stand the Rain single from 2014 here on KRFF 95.9 LPFM Moorhead, Fargo, 701-478-4959, RadioFreeFargo.org. You can listen anywhere in the world. You can donate. You can pick up a tank top if you're feeling like it, and we appreciate your support. This is an independent radio, and I talk about cannabis in a positive light every Thursday at 4:20. So how awesome is this show? Right after me, Stinky Arts Music Mart. Locals on the 8th and Radio Free Madness knocks your Thursday off on the best station in town, if you ask me. And again, thank you for joining me. And this show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. Black Cottage Alchemy does a whole line of like colloidal silvers and whatever, but they do a Becky's Body Butter that's anything you need, it'll take care of you. I think anybody and everybody should have this in their medicine cabinet. BlackCottageAlchemy.com, Black Cottage Alchemy on Facebook, or you can come downtown here and go into Tochi Products, pick it up there, and then sign the ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act petition while you're in there. You can also go to Orange Records and tell Matt Wilson sent you. He may still have some bracelets in there for you, and then you can sign the ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act petition as well. Saturday about noon, as far as I know, is going to be when this show's without music on the YouTube Canna-Talk ND YouTube channel. Philip Canna-Head Pilko, he did a Canna-Head show on Sunday, so you can check that out. And I don't want to say that he will put out another one, but I can tell you that he gets my stuff running smoothly. So thank you to him. And we've brought this show to a big fat goodbye. And again, if you can ever get downtown during the air show while they practice, it's like free adrenaline. But anyway, educate yourself so you can educate others on the benefits of cannabis. David Allen, Judgment Day. Peace.